Hello, everybody. Welcome to this MACRAO-sponsored webinar put on by the College Articulation Committee. My name is Matt Zeig. I am one of the hosts today. We'll get to the other presenters in just a moment. So the whole point of this webinar is to go over the Michigan Transfer Network replacement, give an update for it. We're very excited to give a lot of updates. Those of you who haven't been following too closely, a lot of great information we're going to share with you. Those who have been following closely, we might have even more information to share with you just because updates are happening rapidly. Just a couple of housekeeping things real quick. If everyone could raise their hand on their webinar part just to show that you can hear me, that would be great. That way you can see if we're having any audio issues, and it looks like a lot of people can hear us, so that is good. Awesome, thank you for that. If you do have any questions, feel free to type it in the chat box, and then also this webinar will be recorded and posted at mitransfer.net. So with that said, we'll kind of introduce ourselves. I'll start off first. My name is Matt Zeig. I'm a Transfer Articulation Coordinator at Oakland University. I also am the new chair of the College Articulation Committee for MACRAO for the upcoming year. And then I'll have Colleen and Erica introduce themselves right now.
Hi, I'm Colleen Kibben. I'm the Director of Community College Relations at Eastern Michigan University. I'm the current President-elect of MACRAO for the 2019 year. I just recently served as the chair of the College Articulation Committee. I'm a member of the State Transfer Steering Committee, and I'm one of the members on the MTN Replacement Committee.
Thanks, Colleen, and my name is Erica Oriens. I'm the Executive Director of the Michigan Center for Student Success at the Michigan Community College Association, and the MCCA is the fiscal agent for this project. And so with that, I'll turn it back over to Matt.
Perfect. So I'm kind of the opening act. Colleen and Erica will give more of the knowledgeable pieces of the project. But just to kind of give a quick overview, we'll quickly look at the MTN replacement team. Hopefully there are some names on there that you recognize. Therefore, as we go through this presentation, if you're wondering why is something a certain way that it is, first off, make sure you ask that question. But also, if you know some of these folks, feel free to reach out to them. Let them know some of the things you're loving about it or some of the things you might have concerns, because again, they will bring them back to Erica and the rest of the development team to make sure everything is working. Speaking of developing that website, we do have a publicly available website to check daily on updates, dev.mitransfer.org. So, I was just on there the other day checking out all the different things, and it looks great. It's definitely coming along. Earlier, Erica and I were on a conference call, and we were talking about how sometimes you might be on there while Erica's making updates. So those changes could be happening while you're checking it out. So it's great to look at that. One of the key things that we always talk about with this website is how we're going with a whole new branding of it. When the Michigan Transfer Network originally came out, we always talk about how it was an award-winning presentation, obviously back in 2006, if I'm getting those dates right. And now 12 years later, technology has changed. Overall looks and feels to websites have changed. So therefore, we have a new look as well, starting off with our logo. So again, going with a new branding, we got that mitransfer.org. You can see the 4 different logos that are out there, and these are the logos that you will be able to use on your own school's web pages in order to reference the Michigan Transfer Network. With that said, we can kind of jump into the overall page for website design. On the left-hand side, you kind of have the top of the page, and on the right-hand side, you will have the bottom of the page. So not to take up Colleen's information because she's going to go over each piece individually, but just an overall feel to it. If you're familiar with the Michigan Transfer Network currently, you can tell it's very basic. Here we're going to have way more pictures. The pictures are going to hopefully, as we like to quote, a hero image where you have students graduating, working hard, they're happy. And we're also using photos from everybody's campuses. So it won't just be some stock photo, some random person. Hopefully it will be, hey, we're showcasing, you know, a student from Northern Michigan University with snow that's happening during the winter time. And then all of a sudden, if you're visiting during the summer, it's going to be a student on campus taking summer classes. So that will be really great to have those images and representing all of the different schools. And that's kind of going to be at the top, the middle part, where you see the 4 different sections. That is going to be what we like to call the meat of the matter. Colleen will go in more in depth regarding that. And then kind of the bottom part, you'll see video as well as some other administrative tools. And I'll let kind of Colleen take that over now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Matt. We've got with the main page sections, we start out at the top with the top navigation, go down to the student menu, then to a video of how to navigate the site, and then a staff menu. So that's going to be the layout of the main page, and we'll walk through that now. We've got the top navigation, and on the top navigation, we have 2 pull-down menus, one for students, and then one for faculty and advisors. And then we have information for colleges and universities, or a listing of colleges and universities, and then a secure login. And then as you can see, the pull down there, it's really great for students that are just learning how to use the page. The first pull down item is the learn how to use this site. So really walks the student through what is the site for, what is it all about. And then we have the finding colleges and universities. So again, a listing of those colleges and universities. And then it will go through the rest of it with the student site. And then further below, we're hoping to add information for high school students, for military service members, and reverse transfer. Okay, so now we're on the student menu. The student menu will be in the middle of the page. There's 4 key pockets of information. We start with planning your transfer. So planning your transfer really provides guidance, exploring careers, majors, and how it fits within the pathways. And then you've got transfer your courses. So this is really the heart of the MTN. You can search by sending and receiving institutions. You can then, so again, really what our current Michigan Transfer Network looks like, but a lot nicer of a look. Then we have information on the Michigan Transfer Agreement. So general information on what is the Michigan Transfer Agreement, how do you fulfill the agreement, and then how does it apply at the various community colleges, universities, and gives you a link onto those sites. And then we have information on the Michigan transfer pathways that we're all a part of. And it really lays out what it looks like to get an associate degree and a bachelor degree, how to complete that within the 4 years, completing the MTA with major specific courses, electives, and then earning that bachelor degree all through the Michigan transfer pathways. And then there's information on there will be information on the 12 transfer pathways that we have. And let's see, now onto the video. So there's going to be an informational video. This will be great for people that would like a walkthrough of the website and more information, you know, rather than just reading everything, kind of an overview of the whole site, how it can be used, kind of a tutorial. And then on to the staff menu. So the staff menu, there's 4 different pockets there. We have one for faculty and advisors. That one really is for, let's see, for faculty and advisors or staff working with transfer students. It explains what MichiganTransfer.org is. It talks about the full website, what the pathways are, and let's see. It talks about how the information is updated and maintained. It gives a link to institutional contacts. It talks about what happened, the whole process of the change in the Michigan Transfer Network. So it's a really useful site for faculty and staff working with transfer students. And then you have information for administrators. And administrators are really those that are utilizing the site to log in, put in information, run reports, things like that. There's going to be the transfer handbook and materials in that site. Instructions for the secure site that Erica's going to be talking about in a little bit. Information on Michigan transfer pathways, the articulation agreements, and then there's going to be availability for site logos and marketing materials. And let's see. And then we have the pocket for About Michigan Transfer. So About Michigan Transfer just talks about the whole project. It's going to explain, again, how the site was developed, how it was maintained originally by MACRAO, and now how we're going to be partnering with the state organizations to keep everything relevant and updated. And then the final pocket is a Contact Us pocket, and that is going to be a form really for users to fill out. And so if they're interested in a student or a user is interested in admissions at Oakland University, they can put a information or a question in, and it'll be sent to a designated person over at Oakland. And so that's really that part of the site, or the main navigation through the site. And now I think I'm going to be turning it over to Erica for a tour.
Thanks, Colleen. Sorry about the mishap with the slides there at the beginning, but hopefully you're able to see that now. I am going to give a live tour, which is can be dangerous sometimes. But Colleen and Matt, can you confirm that you're able to see my web browser?
Yes, I can see it, Erica.
Okay,
Yep,
great, perfect. Good. So Colleen did a great job providing you with an overview of the main page of the site. The team that has helped develop this really wanted us to focus on students up here at the top of the page. And so the information you see here is very focused on students. And then as we scroll down, there's more information for all of you who are advising students or maybe responsible for some aspects of transfer at your institution. Now, as Matt said early on, you can go look at this right now at dev.mytransfer.org. You see all of the updates that are happening live on here. And you will also see, as if you're clicking around, that a lot of the pages are not quite updated yet, and you'll see changes on these pages. But if you're clicking around here, I just want to point out a few features that we think are really important about this site. First, I will go out to our colleges and universities page, and similarly to what was on the Michigan Transfer Network page, we'll have a listing of all the colleges, the participating colleges and universities in Michigan. We've organized them by sector as a way to make it easier for students to search for those institutions. This will likely get an update with some more graphics on it so that it looks a little bit more dynamic when students come to this page. But it is intended to be a place where students can find information about colleges and universities. I'll go ahead and click on Alpena Community College, and you can see here that we have a partially developed profile page for Alpena. Alpena is responsible for and able to maintain all of the information on this page. And I'll show you a little bit about how Alpena and all of the other colleges will be able to do that when we get to the next section of the presentation. But similarly to what we have, but much more expanded than what we have on the current MTN, Alpena can upload their own custom image that they want to have at the top of this page. They can provide us with information about when we direct students to AP, information about AP at their institutions and military credit. We will be adding contacts, or Alpena will be able to add contacts down here, and students will be able to find information, a lot of information about Alpena on this site, including ways that they can contact people. So this is the landing page for colleges and universities. If we go back to the main page of the site, you'll see here that you can click through these various different areas, providing students with some guidance about planning their transfer, And you'll notice that we reinforce this idea of planning throughout the site because we want to encourage students to think about planning early on as they're thinking about transferring. We've provided some very basic guidance here about how students can start transferring. And for those of you who are advisors, you'll be happy to see that we really emphasize that students need to consult with an advisor as they're thinking about planning their transfer pathway. We've also tried to signal on the site various different places where students might be asking themselves questions like, boy, I don't know what I want to major in. We are trying to signal to them that they can use the contact form, or they can check out the resources at Michigan colleges and universities back at those profile pages for each institution, where they can find that information there as well. A really exciting part of the site that we're bringing over from the MTN that is currently live is the ability to search for transfer courses. So exactly the same way that students do now, they can search for courses by sending institution or by receiving institution. Just like they do now, you can go in and start your search, select an institution, and there's no data in there on Adrian College, but there's data in there on Alpena Community College, and I'm going into the subject area, and I can start clicking search. If I can choose my university where I want my credits to transfer, and then the search results come up here as well. So we have the information about the sending institution subject, course number and credit, the receiving institution, and the credits that are received at that institution. So the search feature will be similar. We're still working with how we might be able to what exactly we will require on the search feature. So do you have to select a subject? Can you select the sending institution and a receiving institution but no subject? How we want to be able to do that. The other feature that we've added here is that students can, or any user can download those results to a PDF. So if you click that, your search results come up, and you can see that Macomb Community College, the receiving institution is Eastern Michigan University. It adds a report date on here, so that includes when the student ran the report, and has a nice footer down here that students would be able to then save this information to be able to take with them perhaps to an advising appointment. Right now, if students want to find information about the Michigan Transfer Agreement, they need to go to your institution's website, or they need to go to the MACRAO website. And when we developed the new MyTransfer, we wanted to make sure that we were making that strong connection between the course equivalency and the MTA. And so similarly to what you've seen before, we will very briefly explain what the MTA is, and then just like we do now, use this opportunity to connect out to all of the institution sites that explain information about the MTA. So migrating that over from the MACRAO site over here. As some of you know, we have been developing the MyTransfer pathways, which are the statewide transfer pathways. And similarly on here, we're providing students with an opportunity to search for the pathways that they want to pursue. And so we kind of see this as the first bucket here is about planning. This is about courses. We get a little bit bigger with the MTA, and then here we're talking about the entire associate degree. If you're not involved in that project, those pathways are being developed in we'll end up with at least 12 different programs where students can start their pathways at a community college, complete an associate degree, and then transfer to the university. And those are based on specific programs of study. And so we can see on here that is below is a list of institutions that are participating in that pathway. And if we click on that, it would take it out to information that Alpena is maintaining about the biology transfer pathway for their students. So people will be able to navigate, students will be able to navigate out to that site as well. And then of course the universities will be, or the receiving institutions will be maintaining that information as well. And I will go over how this all gets there in just a little bit. Before we do that, I want to go down to the bottom of the page to show you some information that might be very useful to you. On our Faculty and Advisors tab, right now we just have a few questions out there, but what we're intending to do with this page is really provide resources for those faculty and advisors who might not be super users of the website, but do want to answer some questions about transfer and about this transfer website as well. There's only 4 questions listed on here right now, but we will be working with the team and with people at colleges and universities to make sure we're adding relevant information here that are questions that people really need to know the answer to. And so you'll see a lot more development in this area as time goes on as well. You can go back up here and navigate to the Administrators tab as well, and we'll cross-link between those. And as Colleen said, this is where we'll be putting a lot of resources for what we're calling administrators, although we think that advisors and administrators will probably bounce between these 2 areas. So for example, we've got, we'll be putting like the MTA handbook and the new My Transfer Pathways handbook will be on here. We have lots of instructions for those of you who will be accessing the secure website. We'll put all those instructions on here. All of the institutions that are participating in the My Transfer Pathways will be signing articulation agreements, and we will have that information available on here. And then we'll have a lot of good marketing materials available to you. And then as Matt said, you'll be able to use these site logos. And I can navigate back to that because maybe you couldn't see the screen there, but we will have these logos available to you. So if you wanted to embed them within your site, we will have them available in color and black and white. We have them available with the My Transfer and then the .org at the end, and we also have it without the .org at the end. And so we'll also have in here pre-produced postcards and posters that you'll just be able to download and then use those across your campus as well. So that's where you'll find all of this more technical information that are resources for administrators. If we go back to the main page of the site, we will have a lot of information about My Transfer here in this bullet. Right now, we just have placeholder information, but for those of you who may be involved in our Pathways project, you know that we've been maintaining this website that's mytransfer.net that talks about the pathways and all the kind of work that we're doing with that. We expect that a lot of this information is going to migrate over to the About My Transfer page. So we kind of have a landing place for that on this site, and it's all in one place. So expect to see that as the site starts to go live, that a lot of this information will migrate over here. And then the last thing that I want to talk about on the main page is the Contact Us page. And so so one of the things that is really kind of new in 2018 that maybe wasn't an issue back when the original MTN was created is there's a lot more security concerns about putting various people's names and email addresses on there, especially because you can get spammed a lot through those email addresses. And so one of the recommendations of the MTN replacement team was to use a form that students would be able to enter a question, and then that would get routed to your whatever email address you tell us it should go to. So one thing that's missing on this page right now that we're still going to be adding is institution. So for example, the student would add their name here, their email address, the subject line, and then what category this question needs to go to. So if I had a question about admissions, I would be able to add that question about admissions. If I click send message, we have an added, oh, sorry, I didn't get to show you. But the first time that I did this, I needed to do one of those things where I have to identify which picture had a car in it. So it's just another level of security to make sure that we don't get spammed on this and those email addresses don't get spammed. But that message will then get sent to, for example, if I was sending that message to Alpena Community College, it would get routed to whatever email address Alpena Community College told us to route questions about admissions. So that's kind of the end of the tour of the main page. So I'm going to take a second now and pause before I move on to see if, ask Colleen and Matt if there are any questions, or ask all of you to see if you have any questions.
I don't see any right now, Erica, but we'll keep you posted in case anybody types something in.
Okay. Well, for those of you who might have questions, go ahead and put those in your question pane. And then Colleen and Matt know that they can interrupt me at any time to be able to ask questions. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the secure site. So how are we going to get all of this information that appears on the site? And what we will do is identify several people at the institutions that will have access to the secure site, and they'll navigate to the site and click on this login button here. When they do that, they will have several options. So they can view reports on the site. They can update course data, so they can update those course equivalencies for your institution. They can modify their institutional profile. Some super users will be able to edit the public website. And then institutions will be able to manage their own users and their own preferences on the site as well. First, I want to show you the page where folks can add users and set permissions. And so every institution will have at least one user who has a permission to add users and set permissions. And that person then can then add anyone else who they want to also add users and set permissions, or update, this should say institutional information, manage equivalencies and run reports. You can identify what that person's username is, randomize a password, and then email a password to that person. A message will be sent to that person that then they have access to the site. Colleges will be able to upload equivalency data. In this example, our test person is John Creed, who is a pretend employee at Macomb Community College. And this is where John Creed would be able to upload equivalency data for Macomb Community College. We also have a page where institutions can manage their own institutional information. So I showed you some URLs before that you saw on the site. So for example, how did we know what the URL was for Alpena's Michigan Transfer Agreement site? We know that because Alpena is managing that information on when they can go in and edit their institution. How did we know what logo to use for Alpena? That's because Alpena told us what logo to use because they uploaded the logo here. And then when we created that site, it was pulling it from this information. The other exciting piece of the new Michigan Transfer Network is the ability to view and run reports. And I'll show you that. But for right now, we have several reports that are available. One is a report by receiving institution. So essentially, you can just view for your own institution as the receiving institution. What courses do you have in the MTN? But you should know that already because you reported the data. So that's kind of it's a simple report, but it's a nice way to see what's in the MTN. We also have a report by transferring institution. So if you are an institution that you send students to other colleges and universities, you want to know how your courses are transferring to other institutions. So you can run a report to see if I am Macomb Community College, well, how does Eastern accept my courses? And you can run a report to see how your courses are applied at those institutions. We also are developing a report to be able to compare credit hours between the sending institution and the receiving institution. So many of you know there are credit hour discrepancies between our courses, and there was a request to run a very simple report to see where those credit hours may be different, which is an opportunity for some institutions who may want to see how their credits are applying and maybe if they have other additional general credit, but also to think about if they wanted, if they feel like their credit hours for a particular course are kind of out of alignment with other credits that are required at other institutions. We also have an equivalency change report, so we'll be able to see which equivalencies were added, which equivalencies were deleted, and which equivalencies were changed. At the request of the folks who were at the MACRAO Summer Conference, we also added a report where you could see what students were searching for. So what, like when students go to that area where they're searching for courses, what are they searching for? What information are they entering? And then finally, we have an area where you can set up reports that can be scheduled. So you might want to get one of these reports sent to you or run that report on a regular schedule. We have the ability, you will have the ability to do that report scheduling as well. So I want to give you a live tour. Oh, yep.
Eric, real quick, we got a lot of questions actually that just came in. If you want to take a quick break, I can read some of them to you. Sure. I'm actually, for everyone on the webinar, I'm probably going to work my way backwards on there. So the first question is, are equivalencies migrated and uploaded the same as MTN?
That's a great question. So equivalencies will not be migrated from the current MTN. Institutions will need to upload a new file to this site. We will be reaching out to institutions in January to upload a test file. So we will be walking you through that process where we're doing some testing in January so that you can test this out. There are two file formats in the MTN. One is called simple and one is called multi. And we will still accept those same file formats. The only difference is we have added two fields to the new file, and that is a begin date and an end date. So when did the equivalency begin and when did the equivalency end? Many of you maintain that information in your SIS, but in the previous MTN, that wasn't a field that you could report. And the team decided that that is really essential information for students to know when those equivalencies are valid. So we'll be adding those two things in there. And we will be providing for everyone in December, like next week, providing a lot of information for you about what the file setup will look like and what modifications you would need to make, and then all of the instructions for how you upload that data to the new MTN.
All right, I think, there was a question from Carrie Burst from SC4 about the file format. It sounds like you covered it, Carrie. If Erica didn't, please write back to us to let us know if there's anything additional she needs to add to your question. But I think for the most part, Erica did touch on what your question was about. Another quick question here is regarding migration. Will the logins be migrated over from MTN?
Great question. So those of you who currently have access to the MTN and upload data for your institution will receive an email from me next week. And in that email, we will ask you if you are still the person who has access to upload that data. If the answer is yes, you'll provide us with some information, and we will then go in here, and if we go over here to users, we will go in and we will create a new user, an institution user, and we'll go ahead and enter your information in there. And that's how you'll get access to the new site. So you'll be getting that message from me next week.
All right, we still got a few more going on here. We'll cover them all and let you get back to presentation. So another question is, if we still need to make updates on transfer course equivalencies, are we okay to keep doing those on the current MACRAO site, especially as info is actively being migrated to the new site?
So yes, you should continue to update your equivalencies in the current MTN. This site is scheduled to go live in May of 2019. And so you should definitely continue to do that until we migrate over to this new site, at which time, so let me just show you here, if you do go out to mytransfer.org right now, you'll see that we have a coming soon page, kind of card up there, and it tells students to go to the MTN. As soon as this new site is live, we will have a very similar page like this on the old MTN that tells people to go to the new site. And just to reiterate again, we will not be actually migrating the equivalencies from the old site. We are starting brand new with this site. So every participating institution at least needs to upload at least one file in the new site. The testing for that will happen in January.
Erica, I've got a question for you about, are there opportunities while the site is in development to give feedback?
Absolutely there are. And so thank you for asking that. We love to have feedback. I'm going to go back to the beginning of our slide deck here and show you, because I think maybe something was messed up and I wasn't showing my screen. But here are the people that are on the MTN replacement team. If you know any of them, they are great people to provide feedback to on the site right now. We also, after the first of the year, when this team believes the site is in a place where we want to make it more public and gather feedback from people, we will be sharing that with you and sharing some kind of survey form that asks you for your feedback about the site. We will also be doing testing after the first of the year. So we'll be doing testing with advisors to be able to test, do things work on the site and are things clear on the site? And then we'll also be doing some student testing. We'll be doing some student focus groups. If you have an interest in being part of that, we are likely to develop a focus group protocol, and then we'll share that with institutions, and then institutions can collect the feedback from students and then share that back with us on the project team. Then we can comb through that. So yes, we are absolutely looking forward to getting feedback from people once we feel like the site is in a place where it's in a position where we can actually share it. Right now, obviously, it's still very much under development.
Yeah, there was something mentioned at the beginning, Erica, that Matt had said when he was talking about the main page. So one of the questions was, how are you getting institutions, the pictures from the institutions to put on the website? Is there any plan for that, or are we there yet?
You know, I'm so glad somebody asked that, because I have reached out to several institutions, and I know my colleagues at the state universities and independent colleges have as well, to supply us with images that we can use on the site. So like these people here are just stock images. And so I have a form to complete that is a release form that would allow us to use those on the site. And so I would love to get more pictures from our own colleges and universities to use on here. However, I will also say, I showed you before on the colleges and universities, I showed you Alpena as an example, and I will go in the secure site and I will show you, if we go into Alpena's profile page, and we go to edit institution, you can see here where Alpena was able to upload their logo, and they are able to upload their own photo that they want to appear on their page. And you would be able to do that for your own institution as well. However, that's a little bit different than we want pictures that go on the main site that we can use. And really it's only like these 5 pictures, but we have it on other pages too. where we would be happy to use pictures from institutions. So my email address, I'll put it in the chat, is eorians@mcca.org. And if you want to email me, I have a release form that you could sign and then send me the images, and we'll start to incorporate them into the site.
Erica, there's a question. You might have went over this already when you were showing the individual institutions uploading information, but there's a question about, will there be a place for institutions to link transfer guides?
Oh, you guys have great questions. I knew this would be wonderful. So that's wonderful. So if we go out to the My Transfer Pathways, obviously we say here, transfer your associate degree. And as we've been working to develop these My Transfer Pathways, we're doing that in very large majors, but we know that we will not include every major and every articulation agreement out there. And so we have a place here where we've said to students, don't see your major, find additional information about articulation agreements here. And this is where this isn't developed yet, but this will take you out to a place where students can select the institution, and then you can tell us where they should go on your website to find more information about articulation agreements.
And there's a question, Erica, about, will there be a limit to how many users can have a login at a single institution?
No, no limit. I mean, unless it gets probably out of control, but we don't anticipate there would be a problem. Nope, but there is no technical limit to it.
Great, okay. And then the last question that I see right now is, will we see test reports before everything goes live? Like what they would possibly look like?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. So we're in the development phase right now. After the holiday, after the new year, we transition into more of the testing phase. So in December, we will start to populate, well, when you get the message from me next week, we're really looking for people to have access to this who are going to be uploading the equivalency information, because that's who will be doing the testing. However, as I described before, it's possible that, you know, like Colleen, there's probably somebody in your registrar's office who does the uploading of equivalencies. And so they would have access to, they would have access to, for example, managing the equivalencies. But Colleen, you may be a person that has access to only running reports. That's the only thing that you have access to. So you can't update the equivalencies or the institutional information. You just are responsible for running reports. In which case you will be able to go to this reporting page here. And if we click through to a report by receiving institution, now I have access. I'm a super user logged in right now. And so I can see everything, but you can see here that you are able to, I can see all of the equivalencies for Macomb Community College. I can generate a PDF with that. So I'm just looking at Macomb to Alpena, but I can generate a PDF with that. The other thing that I can do is export it to a comma delimited file. So I'll let that open here. And if I open that, I'm getting it in an Excel file, in which case I'm able to do some manipulation of the file as well. In case you want to do some analysis of that. So that's the report by receiving institution. And it's getting a little bit dangerous here because we're going into live data. I bet GRCC has some. There we go. So this gives you a sense of what these equivalencies look like. So I I'm looking at the receiving institution of Macomb Community College, and I've got the new equivalencies, the removed equivalencies, and the changed equivalencies here. So you begin to see what the differences are. And we will have tons of supporting documents to help you interpret this. And we'll also have a lot of information, instructions for how you'll access this information as well. So yep, we'll be doing all of that. Just to go all the way through, we've got our student search results here. And so you can see the date that it was searched, what the person searched. So this may have been me that searched Eastern Michigan University to Grand Valley State University. And from this IP address did some of that searching on there as well. And let me see if I can find. So here are equivalencies so Macomb Community College is the transferring institution. So they're the sending institution, if you will. And so they may want to look at what some of their equivalencies look like at their receiving institutions, which I think is really valuable because otherwise, you know, you only have insight into that based on what the students are able to see as well. And so you can even go in here and start to filter down specifically by, okay, you can even filter down into specifically, boy, how are these people accepting our credit? Any other questions about that? Let me see if I covered reports, we covered the course data, how to update your institutional profile, and then add users as well. So let me go back.
There's one other question related to the begin-end date of courses. Is that going to be a required field?
That's a great question. Thank you. I meant to say that. It is not. Nothing that's new in the site is going to be a required field. So it may eventually, you all may decide that you want to move in that direction, but anything like that is not going to be a required field. Thanks for asking. Okay, any other questions about the site or the back end of the site?
I found another one. I'm sorry, the questions are all kind of mixed up how we're receiving them, but is there a spot where we can link basic skills gen ed guides?
Basic skills gen ed guides. Basic skills, what are those? Do you know what those are?
I'm thinking, I don't know about the basic skills, but I'm thinking gen ed, just like what are their general education programs? And what I'm imagining is on the institutional page where you have all those areas you can link them to. I think somebody's asking, could you link them back to, say, Eastern's general education core program or another school's core general education?
We can do anything we want. Yeah, I mean, we can definitely do that. I think especially when we go back to these institutional profile pages. So you see here, one of the things that people wanted is a link out to the AP, how Alpena addresses or how Alpena allows students to use AP credit. So I think anything you're describing like that, we would be able to include on this institutional profile page. So if you have suggestions like that, contact me or contact one of the people on the MTN replacement team. And I think we're also, as the team just tries to balance, they were very careful about and deliberate about how we selected, you know, what these real things are on the landing page here, focusing very much on planning, transferring, the MTA, and the My Transfer pathways. But as Colleen mentioned a little bit earlier as well, we know that there's a lot of other information that students want as well. that we might not need to be front and center on the new MTN website, but we do want to provide that information. So for example, the MTN doesn't provide any information about transferring from outside of Michigan. We are only dealing with courses within Michigan. And so we will have a page about transferring from outside Michigan and provide students with a link to your page where you maintain that information. The same thing would be true for military service members. So the Michigan Veterans Affairs Agency is creating a database of courses that are, where you'll take credit for military experience. So that doesn't really fit into a traditional course-to-course equivalency database. But they're maintaining that information, so we'll have a page on here that then directs students out to that site as well. And potentially, if you maintain that information on your own site, we can direct students there as well. Great, any other questions?
I don't see any out there right now, Erica.
Okay. All right, so I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint, and I am going to just go over our last slide here. We did do questions throughout, which I think is a great way to do it, and I want to talk about upcoming project activities. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, those of you who are people who currently load data in the MTN, you will receive a message from me next week, kicking off the process of uploading course equivalency data in the testing process that we'll be doing in January of 2019. In January and February, we will also be working with colleges and universities to add users and set permissions. So we have all of these various different ways that you can access the site with different levels of access. And so we'll be working with institutions to add users and set permissions, and then working with you as well to make sure that you're adding your institutional information. We've been able to pre-populate some of that information with logos that are already out there, but we'll need you to provide a lot of different URLs that we'll need on the site. The other thing that I forgot to mention on the site is we actually have a broken link tracker on the site. And so if there are broken links, there'll be a way for us to see that there are broken links on the site and that those need to be fixed. Between now and April of 2019, we will continue to do page updates of the site. And we say that all the way through April because that is, we expect to continue to receive feedback from people on how we can refine the site before we go live. In March and April, we'll be doing user testing and feedback. So all of you who use this tool a lot out at your institutions, we'll be doing that testing and then also asking for your feedback if you had any issues while you were using the site. In March and April, we also plan on doing student focus groups and getting feedback from how students are experiencing the site. I expect, actually, we'll probably start doing training before March of 2019. And for those of you who were noticing when we were on the administrator's page, this is where we will have instructions, and we'll probably have a lot of training on here as well. I expect that we'll be doing some training in person. We'll be doing a lot of training virtually as well, so that we can make sure that we get out there to people all across the state. We will be doing that virtually, and we'll make sure that we record those trainings as well. So if the timing doesn't work out for you, we will have training materials out here. And then we are expecting that the site will go live sometime in May of 2019. So with that, are there any other questions?
We got another one. Can information on how each institution will accept the MTA be included on the institution's webpage as well?
Yes. So for those of you who may use the current MACRAO site, I'm just going to go out there right now. And if I go to Michigan Transfer Agreement and I scroll down and I go to Member Institution Information, and my favorite example is Eastern. And if I click on MTA information, Eastern's Community College Relations Office maintains a site about the MTA where they talk about how MTA accepts all 30 credits for the core general education curriculum. And then they also tell students that transfer students with an MTA endorsement will only need to complete these requirements. And then they share information with students about how they can actually complete some of those, like, for example, the perspectives on a diverse world may be transferred. So they provide this information to students. My expectation is that Eastern can continue to maintain this exact same page. It's just that that page will now appear here, where we would go out to Eastern Michigan University. Okay, so it's just going to be in a more convenient place for students to be able to find that. So yes, we will continue to ask colleges and universities to provide students with that information.
All right, the next question is, do you have documentation to send to our Office of Information Technology departments?
We will. Thank you for asking. When we are ready to have all that documentation ready, when we're ready for all the institutions to do this testing, what we'll do is we will include that information here. So right now I have login instructions out there. We will provide additional information about uploading course equivalencies. We will have course equivalency file field descriptions. We'll have a sample file for the simple and expanded file format. And then as we need to add additional things here that you will need to be able to do this, we will place those in here in the instructions for the secure site as well. So I don't have it right now because we're not ready for that, but we will.
And then one other question, which I actually can answer, is will this recording be available after? And as we mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, it will be available at mitransfer.net.
And we have our archived events up here. So right now this is an upcoming event. And as soon as we get this recording process, which usually takes a couple of days, we will make that available. For those of you who may be a transfer liaison at your institution and you weren't able to attend MACRAO's Transfer Liaison webinar, we have that recording up here as well.
And that does it for questions.
Okay, well, thank you all for joining us. I'll turn it back over to Matt and Colleen.
Thank you, everyone, for attending this update. Hopefully you got a lot of good information out of it. Again, this is still ongoing for the next 5 to 6 months, so continually check out the publicly available website, dev.mitransfer.org, to see all the updates. If you do have any questions or anything, feel free to reach out to Erica, myself, or Colleen, as well as those who are on the committee. With that said, I wish everyone a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.